Sine A is equal to 5 over 13. Sine A is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So it's 5 over 13. Now the missing side will be found by using Pythagorean theorem. C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. 169 is equal to 25 plus B squared. B is equal to square root of 144, which is 12. So we need to find cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Between 90 and 180, so A is a second quadrant angle. Cosine is negative, sine is positive. The hypotenuse is always positive. Cosine A is negative 12 over 13, and tangent A is the opposite, 5 over the adjacent, negative 12. It's negative 512. Cosecant A is 13 over 5. Secant A is negative 13 over 12, the reciprocal of cosine. Cotangent A is negative 12 over 5, the reciprocal of tangent A. Secant A is equal to negative square root of 5 over 2. And tangent is positive. So tangent is positive and secant 1 over cosine is negative. Tangent is positive in the first and in the third quadrant. And secant 1 over cosine is negative in the second and third quadrant. So the third quadrant is where the angle is located. Now, secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So the hypotenuse is square root of 5. Secant is equal to hypotenuse over adjacent, and the hypotenuse is square root of 5, and the adjacent side is negative 2. To find the missing side, we're gonna do square root of 5 squared is equal to A squared plus negative 2 squared. And when we solve it, we get A is equal to 1, which is really negative 1 because it's a third quadrant angle. Now, secant is given, we could just write it out, negative 5 over 2. Sine is equal to opposite, which is negative, the opposite, which is negative 1 over the hypotenuse, square root of 5. So it's square root of 5 over 5 when rationalized. Cosecant will be just negative square root of 5, the reciprocal. Cosine is adjacent, negative 2 over the hypotenuse, square root of 5. When rationalized, it's negative 2 square root of 5 over 5. And secant A is given. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, negative 1 over negative 2, which is 1 over 2. And cotangent is the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. Trigonometric values of negative angles can be dealt with by converting the negative angle into positive ones. Counterclockwise, the angle is positive. Clockwise, the angle is negative. We have theta and negative theta in the following graph. you notice that sine negative theta is negative, therefore it's equal to negative sine theta. We say that sine is odd. Cosine negative theta, those two angles have the same cosine, the same x value. So cosine negative theta is equal to cosine theta. We said that cosine is even. Only two functions are even and they involve cosine. It's cosine itself and secant, which is 1 over cosine. All the other functions are odds because they involve sine. So sine is odd, tangent, cosecant, and cotangent. We're going to find the exact value. All these angles are negative. Now we know that cosine negative 30 is equal to cosine 30, and cosine 30 from the reference triangle is square root of 3 over 2. Tangent negative 300 is equal to negative tangent 300. Tangent is odd. The reference angle for 300 will be 360 minus 300. 300 is a fourth quadrant angle and it's 60 degrees. Negative tangent 60 degrees will be minus, and tangent of 60 is square root of 3. Well, square root of 3 over 1, which is square root of 3. So the answer is negative square root of 3. Cotangent negative 3 pi over 2 is equal to negative cotangent 3 pi over 2. 3 pi over 2 is quadrantal. Cosine 3 pi over 2 is 0, and sine is 1. 0 over 1 is 0. Sine negative 135 is equal to negative sine 135 degrees. The reference angle 135 is in the second quadrant, is 180 minus 135, which is 45 degrees. Negative sine 45 degrees is equal to negative square root of 2 over 2. Secant negative 21 pi over 4. Let's convert 21 pi over 4 into degrees. 180 divided by pi. Pi cancel. It's negative 21 times 45 degrees. And negative 21 times 45 degrees is equal to negative 945 degrees. We're going to divide by 360, and the remainder will be the coterminal angle. So when we divide by 360, the remainder is 225. Coterminal to negative 225 will be 360 minus 225, and that angle is 135 degrees. The reference angle for 135 degrees will be, since 135 is a second quadrant angle, will be 180 minus 135. It'll be 45 degrees. Now, Secant is 1 over cosine, and cosine is negative in the second quadrant. Secant of negative 21 pi over 4 is equal to secant of 21 pi over 4, which is negative square root of 2.